Well, hello, OMG. We are so delighted that you have chosen to be with us this afternoon. My name is Christy, and I am joined by none other than Josh McAlister on our sales team. Today, we are here to talk about accident response, and we wanted to make this a really informative but really quick session, okay? So before we jump on in, we're just gonna do a couple of housekeeping rules, and then we're gonna get right to it. Actually, I don't know if I'm sharing. Nope, not right one. There we go. Ta-da! Okay, so a couple of things to get started here. The first is this is going to be a recorded session. So you're going to receive a copy of the court recording about 24 hours from the time we end today, and you'll be able to share it and revisit the content today. The next thing is we really want you to interact with us. So in the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel, that's where you can go ahead and type your questions. Josh and I are going to make sure that we get to it. And also, we want this to be a really fun and informative session for you. And we know sometimes things happen and you think of other questions that are Tenstreet related, not necessarily this content related. Don't hold back, let us know. And then in the GoToWebinar viewer, where you're probably seeing our faces right now, if you click that little screenshot button, it will take a screenshot of whatever is on the screen and it'll save it to your desktop. You can also control the zoom. So if you need to see something a little more closely, that's where you can do it. Anyway, get familiar with it. It's going to be really super great. And again, we're talking about accident response. So I am going to hand it over to Josh just to get us started today. We're going to just give a brief overview. We're going to do a demo. But again, we want to have a really great time with you. So thanks again for joining. Let's get started. Hey, Josh, start us off.
I think, hey, let's have a great time. Like it's a Thursday afternoon and we're going to talk about our least favorite thing that we hope never happens, which is an accident, right? But at the same time, it's transportation, and that's unfortunately part of the day-to-day and part of the roles of many of you guys on the call today. And so we've got some unique tools that help position your company. And I really want to just take a second to say, hey, why are we talking about accident response? What does Tenstreet have to do with that? Well, really everything, right? The idea behind Tenstreet is that you can start and have a full interconnected system where recruiting, onboarding, safety, compliance all falls into one platform. But our premise has always been, let's connect the driver and the carrier. And there's a huge disconnect that I hear about in the industry literally day in and day out, because I'm a nerd on safety and that's all I talk about, right? And so I hear, hey, when an accident happens, I'm waiting on the driver to pick up the phone and call me. And I'm not saying that that's not the right steps that need to happen, right? Everybody on here is going to probably want their driver to call their safety director, and let's get that ball rolling so that we can start the process, reduce the risk for the company. But there's just some nuances to that can't always be communicated over the phone. Maybe you don't want that driver to say certain things in front of the body cam on the police officer that's watching them. There's just so many different things at play, and corporate record is a unique thing today because there's cameras and videos everywhere. And so that's part of why we have accident response. And we're going to take a look at that today, but it's really so we can understand how do we connect the driver and the carrier and safety when an accident occurs. Part of that is that when you get in an accident, guys, my wife got in an accident this week, not to make it personal, she's fine, everything's good, but she's not been in an accident, and it just kind of shocked her just a little bit, right? She's a firstborn rule follower driver, and it wasn't the most fun moment for her. And so we've talked about, hey, if that happens, this is what you need to do. But the same applies to you and your drivers. I'm sure there's been training and conversations about here's what needs to happen in the event of an accident. But the shock of that moment, especially when you're in a huge truck, and we've all seen telematics footage, it's not fun, right? And so the shock of that moment can cause that driver to forget training that they were given, to just be a little bit lost in what steps that they should take. And even if you're on the phone with them, that doesn't allow you to adequately get all the information that you need captured. So that's why we have accident response. Christy, what do you have to add to that?
Nothing. I think that was so great because we want to start with the why, right? Why is this important? So at the time of the accident, adrenaline is high. There's a lot of things going on situationally. And so we want to help you prepare your drivers for success, because that in turn feeds into your company's success, right? So that's pretty much why it's here. And for accident response specifically, we never at Tenstreet wanted this to be cost prohibitive. So a lot of the features that we're going to be talking about today are already likely included in what you have for your Tenstreet subscription, which is a really, really good thing. So we're going to continue our conversation, but first there's a couple of questions that we wanted to get started with the group. So we're going to go ahead and launch this first poll. I am interested to know what specifically you all are interested in seeing today. Okay, you can select one in the dashboard, the events management, the internal part. Are you interested in seeing that? Or are you really wanting to focus on driver pulse, the accident checklist, and all of the ins and outs of that? Now, if it were me, I would probably say both because they work hand in hand. A little bit of everything that we create here at Tenstreet has a counterpart for the driver in driver pulse, right? There are, of course, some exceptions, but that's pretty much where we end. Oh my gosh, and we have only had this poll up for just over 40 seconds here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close that poll and share these results. Did we lose me? I feel like we lost me. Did we lose me?
We got you.
Okay. Well, the results are as follows. About 46% of you want to see in the dashboard the events management portion, and the other 54% are really interested to see the driver pulse accident checklist. Okay, excellent. Okay, I love that. Thank you so much for the engagement, the involvement. Now, the next question, and I don't have a whole lot, okay, just these two. So continue with me, please. Thank you very much. We're going to launch this next poll. And I want to know how you as a carrier, a motor carrier, how you're currently managing your accidents, whether you're using a spreadsheet, another software system, in Tenstreet using the events management platform already, or do you just not have a process and that's why you're here today? Again, no judgment. Everyone falls into one of these categories or even something different, so let us know. All right. Oh my goodness. So
Some
far,
good engagement.
it
Thank
is.
you.
Oh my gosh, these numbers are just like going and going. But not surprisingly, a lot of you, 74% of the attendees today have voted. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, share the results, because again, this is a quick webinar today. Okay, 52% of you are still using a spreadsheet. About 26% have another software system, maybe like a claims management system that's helpful for managing the claim. But we're going to show you some really cool things in Tenstreet today that are going to be helpful. A lot of you are using the events management at Tenstreet, and there's a few that don't have a process currently. So again, really great engagement. Thank you so much for working with us as we go through the presentation today. Okay, so what happens in the event of an accident? We already talked about it from a very broad perspective. A collision, an accident occurs, adrenaline is high, and there are certain things that you are already likely training your drivers to do. The first thing I would say that everyone needs to train their drivers to do is to stay calm. Right? Stay calm, make sure the truck is in, all the brakes are set, that the cones are out, that, you know, if there's any injured, that those people are attended to. As things start happening, of course, there's some other best practices that we roll into that conversation, because here at Tenstreet, we have worked with thousands of carriers, helping them to manage and refine their safety management program using the tools that we're going to show you today. So what are some other things that happen in the event of an accident from your perspective? Let's talk about that real quick, Josh.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of areas where this is a chain process that starts at the accident and then reacts downstream. And we want to make sure that we react well to reduce the risk in that process. And we talk about this all the time. How does Tenstreet help you reduce risk? We're leveraging interconnectivity, we're leveraging automation. And many of you might have heard or seen that on the Tenstreet side, the events management side. But the driver piece often doesn't get discussed. And that's really what accident response is aiming at, is saying, hey, part of that is stay calm, right? Make sure that you and the other drivers are safe, are cared for. But there's also a series of events that can be very risk-inducing to the company, right, if they're not handled correctly. And so we want to take charge of that, connect the driver and say, hey, you're on the phone, there's something for you to look at. That can in itself give its calmness, right? And say, these are the steps that we're going to take together to reduce that risk. And if we have the ability to say, this is what you want to do, and control that not only is only the things that are done, but that actually does get done. When you think about down the road, and this is going to be tried, and you might have to be in front of a jury, the risk of those things not being done correctly, the risk of being in a situation where they say you didn't capture X, Y, and Z, or you altered X, Y, and Z, and now we've got spoliation of evidence charges brought up against us. There's so many nuances there that we need to make sure we get this right on the front end.
Yeah, for sure. And so I always encourage carriers to, of course, reinforce your process, but also refine it on an ongoing basis. So take this as an opportunity as we wrap up 2024 to sit with your team, to sit with your general counsel, to call in the experts. Hi, to really contribute to your discussion about what you can do to make your process tight. Right? It's things like making sure your drivers know not to admit fault. If there are injuries, hey, let's loop in our general counsel so that this information is protected with attorney-client privilege. It's those types of things that you need to revisit and kind of find ways to weave it in so that you can get your team trained and on the right path. But if anything, remember that you can train your drivers. All you have to do is pick up your phone. Yeah, call that safety director, call the manager. But if you go into Driver Pulse, there's a full checklist for you to review, and you don't have to think about it. Just go down the checklist, go through the checklist. And so I am in our demo system right now because we do want to show you what the accident response checklist looks like. We're going to show you a little bit of the internal part, but of course we're going to show you what the accident checklist looks like from the driver's side so that you can see all of that information here. So I'm in one of our demo systems. I am Francis Fleet. And so Josh, just kind of walk me through how you would position this for someone who maybe they want their team to call them and give them the accident information they want to start the record. And then we'll also show it from the driver's perspective if the company wanted to choose a process where the driver initiates the accident recording on their end first.
Yeah, and I think that's an important something we want to say to you is that I know in safety, right, I want control over what's done and when, and I want to make sure that what becomes corporate record is what I want. And so there is some standard checklist. There's also the ability to customize some of these things and processes with our actual silver and gold tiers. And so we're happy to discuss that in more detail. But Christy, to your point, when the accident happens, right, I can come into Tenstreet and I can go pull up that driver's file, and just reminder, this is accessible anywhere. And before we get too in the weeds here, if you are doing this on a spreadsheet, kudos to you for managing all those pieces and making sure that there isn't an area where the ball's dropped. We're going to be able to leverage in Tenstreet a file that's already been built as part of your recruiting onboarding process that you guys have already got done. And so you pull up that driver's file. Once they're hired, Christy's got the safety view on right here. You click the drop down next to app view and you'll see that safety management view. And everything that you're probably going to 4 or 5 different systems to find on this accident and then pull into that Excel sheet and hope that nothing's missed in that process, it can source into Tenstreet through pre-existing integrations. So we go to that driver, we click on their overview, and now we can see, hey, here's how long Francis has been here. Here's Francis's accidents, incidents, violations, her CSA, her DQ file. We've got a full picture of what we're working with and what risk has already happened with Francis before we got to this accident. So we know how to respond. But once we actually are engaging and working this accident, we'll go ahead and click on the events tab like Christy did and select accident. And this allows us to create an accident internally and build out your accident report form. So you can say, hey, this was a non-injury accident, occurred yesterday, or right now I'm working this in real time. It's this DOT number, this truck trailer. It was preventable, non-reportable. Let's say Francis hit an object while turning, right? We don't have to make this a fatality accident, but that happens too, right? And so you fill out all these pieces. Again, these forms can be customized with some of those additional tiers. You can track claims, cost, weather conditions. If Francis had a dog in the car, you name it. We can get real creative. We can track it here. You can also not track things that you don't want to be corporate record. I'm going to keep saying that because it matters, right? And so as you fill out this form, we go ahead and add the accident report, and it's essentially creating a file for you to work on this accident. Now, there's a couple important pieces to that being the way it goes, right? You can take a snapshot of that driver's DQ file or even an export and lock that out and say, here is the state of the driver at the time of the accident. Again, speaking to that spoliation of evidence charges type of event, right? You can lock out and restrict who can see these accident forms. You don't want anybody in the company logging in, seeing company sensitive information. And so you can do that here as well. And once that accident's created, you see there's a checklist, and right now it's showing 0. So from an internal perspective, we can continue to work this, but I think this is a great point, Christy, to say, hey, let's look at what the driver sees.
Absolutely. I think that was perfect. And I want to take this opportunity to let each of you know that we do want your questions. So if you have any questions, please just put them in the chat. We are excited to answer any questions that you have. So as we're going through this, we're trying to keep it short and sweet, but we're a little long-winded, so we might go a little over the 30-minute mark. If you have to drop, we understand. But again, we want to make sure everyone's questions are answered. So go ahead and go to the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel to interact with us, okay? We'd love it. Now, something else that we absolutely love about the accident part of the system is that very few times do you have all of the information at the time of the accident. So you have the ability to go back in, edit the details, and access all 74 of these fields. I've counted them. I think it was like 68, 74. But anyway, we're always getting better and refining things. But there's a lot of spaces in here for you to put in the information that's necessary, right? So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to go ahead and kick off this post-hire accident checklist. I'm going to click Send to Driver. It sends them the checklist of the things that now we're requiring from them. Okay, so this is just an example of one workflow where, again, the driver is going to call you. You're going to put the preliminary information in to start that file, to start that record, and then partner with your driver to collect the rest of the information that you need. Now, in my driver post profile, so I'm over here and I just want to refresh it a little bit. So there's this driving events, okay? And I can see a record of all of the different events that are tied to me. So I play around in this quite a bit. There's a whole lot going on. Josh, walk us through what it looks like on the driver side when they see that accident checklist and, when they get to do their part.
Yeah, and we've got some great questions coming in, so keep sending them, guys. So when the driver gets notified of an accident, they go to the Driver Pulse app, which is the same app that they're used to communicating everything they've already done with you through Tenstreet, right? And so you can even be on the phone with them and say, click on driving events, right? And they'll select that driving events box. Now, if they haven't notified you of the accident yet, they can click create driving event, and that'll notify you that the driver's been in an event, accident, incident, violation, right? It's a simple click, allows them to submit that through. But once we've already got that form filled out, that's what we're seeing here with the accident. And so you'll get notified that there's a driving event and it's an open accident, and you can say, hey, we're working this accident today. It's this one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? And so as we're working through that together, they can see at the top a checklist that says, hey, did you call 911? Have you talked to safety? Here's the steps to take. And obviously we've gotten to that point because we filled out our accident internally. So now we're saying, okay, we have to get this essential information from you. So here's the instructions for you up top in green. Real easy, real clear to see, but hey, shut your engine off, set your triangles out, and let's start working this accident together, right? So they can fill out on the app while they're talking to you or not, all the information on location, information, etc. With the silver and gold tiers, these are customizable forms as well, okay? And so they fill these things out, and I will point out, I'm saying they're customizable, but that also means that you've got the free version of this right now, and you can already start using this to reduce risk, okay? So they fill these forms out, and as they move through, it's just like any other form in Tenstreet. They finalize that, send it back to you. You're gonna receive that in the dashboard, and it files itself under your accident report. It also shows you in the accident report in the system, and we'll show you in a minute, but you can see the progress of the driver as they work this checklist. Another question that we get asked a lot is, well, what if I need them to take pictures? Images can be captured right here. But again, we're telling them, this is what you should absolutely take photos of. This is what you should absolutely not take photos of, right? And so it makes it very clear, don't take photos of certain images of fatality or injury or blood. We don't need to have those things stored in the system, right? These are what we need. I'm at many risk conferences, insurance conferences. We get asked about how do we reduce risk. Often we're asked if we can go ahead and pull that telematics footage at the time of the accident. Not Tenstreet we pull, but if the driver will provide that to the police officer or the highway patrolman. Most companies say, hey, not yet, don't touch that. I don't want tampering with that. I don't want to pull data from the ECM. These are all things that can be brought into these checklists. And so the idea is that you're getting police officer information, accident information and images, the necessary data that you need to work that accident, all of those individual pieces that you say, have got to have this to protect my company, we can capture right here. And again, this is a secure platform to do that. You do not want drivers texting images of fatalities in ways that can be hacked and caught, right? We are SOC Type 2 compliant. This is a secure platform to share that data.
Yes, and I love that the chat has literally exploded with so many really great questions. What I'm going to point out here is that each of these sections, so the essential information, vehicle information, accident images, and police, each of these sections have their own set of rules that are associated with collecting information, right? Because we wanted to put it in a way that makes sense. And if the driver navigates away from this page, they still have instructions for what's relevant at that time. Again, many of you already have access to use these features right now. And so this is why we're doing this webinar today, because we want you to know what's available to you so that you can start getting the most from your Tenstreet subscription. And so again, if I am, okay, so I'm hired by Demotastic and I am in here as a driver and I want to report something that's going to go into, to my safety director, to my compliance personnel, I can click create driving event and I can say, hey, here's an accident. I can click the submit button, finish it, right? That creates a record that then I can go back into and I can start putting the information in, right? And so that will trigger a notification in your dashboard. And I'm just going to show you in the dashboard settings. And then there's some communication preferences down here at the bottom. Safety communications, I want them all. I want to turn them all on because I want to get that notification. I want a fly in banner. I want it to like light up and give me sirens and whistles. I want to know. So I always suggest you turn on all the communications until you find the preferred communication method, and then you know to look out for it. So again, we wanted to accommodate multiple workflows with the accident response checklist. Now, let me show you something else because it's really cool, and I think it's right along the lines of what we're talking through. So some time ago, we created this your ability as a carrier to maintain and update your checklists internally. And so the accident response checklist is super cool. But again, there's lots of different checklists that you can have here that will help you to track what you need from your driver. Some of them are driver facing checklists and there's a setting for that. But again, we can't go as deep because of our time here, but there's a whole heck of a lot of functionality that we've already created and put in your hands so that you can manage collecting information from your drivers. Now, someone asked about video and pictures. One of the things that I love is that the thumbnail pictures should show up right here, right? So if Francis had uploaded pictures, you would be able to see that here. You're able to see the percentage of completion as Josh spoke about a few moments ago. And you're able to still kind of work this accident in real time as you compile information from your end and solicit information that you need from the driver. You're able to have it all stored in one place, even linking different documents. Let's say there's a post-accident drug screen that happens. You want to link that information here because it's a part of collecting the documentation that you need so that you can do the proper root cause analysis. Because a lot of you are doing that. You're trying to figure out, hey, what really happened with here? Was the driver fatigued? Were there outside sources? Was this just like a, like there's a lot of different things that companies do that we've noticed to figure out what can we do to avoid this in the future. Because a lot of carriers, you want to see each of your drivers get home safe every dang day, right? And we want the same for you. We want everyone to get back to their families. We want the motoring public to be safe as well. And it starts with having a solid safety program. Okay, so Josh, let's go through some of these questions. If you read through them, then we can start getting through some of them. And I'm happy to just kind of hop around. So hold on with us a few minutes while we go through some of your questions today. Any questions that we don't get to in our allotted time, or if we need to kind of take it off base to get you a very detailed answer, we absolutely will, because we can. Okay.
Some of them. So I'm going to show a couple more things, Christy, because I think it'll close the gap on a couple, and then we'll circle back. But once we have the accident, the driver has the checklist, they complete that. You can also leverage statuses internally, so you can track where you're at as you're working that accident. When we do actually close that accident out, we know that if we've got telematics integrations and CS integrations, you click a button and you get CSA violations logged in and telematics footage memorialized in this accident report. One of the questions we got was, how long do you keep that information? We do not get rid of data in Tenstreet once you store it. It is your data. We're housing it for you. We firmly believe that. And so you will have to delete that out of the system if you want it gone. We keep that data, and there's not a time frame on that, okay? The other piece of that I want to speak to is Christy talked about the importance of getting your drivers home safely, and I absolutely believe that. I don't want to sound like the big bad side of safety now, right? But we also want to look at risk and protection of the company, and many of these claims or cases or subpoenas come years down the road, and not necessarily when you had anticipated. And then you've got to go back to that file and hope that everything was consistent and worked. It will be here for you, and it will be consistent and worked if you're leveraging these checklists. We had a question about videos. We don't currently have a video set up. We still allow you to send in pictures. Part of the reason for that is because when we think about corporate record and what is said, a picture doesn't speak. Now, it might say 1,000 words, but it's not saying it in a video in front of your courtroom. And you don't want to necessarily take that video and not have control of what's being said or heard in the background of that video. And so right now it is just a picture-based model. We had a question around GPS. We can certainly talk with you around truck map and Pulse Geo and some of the geolocation features. At the moment, you go ahead and would enter in the information as to where that occurred, and the driver can self-submit that in the accident response section as well, okay? There's a lot of different questions around restrictions and how we can say who can see what. So yes, you can have a safety director be assigned to their work list and only see those individual drivers, and that can funnel up with the notifications that Christy mentioned to say, hey, now we're going to let the safety director or the corporate safety director know what's going on. So that's options as well. There's a lot of control around safety is what I'm getting at. Who can see it, who can do what needs to happen. And so that's another thing. Somebody asked about, hey, can I use this if I don't already have my drivers and my equipment in Tenstreet? Yes, you can. Go ahead and enter it in, and you can put in the truck information, or you can create a unit of your truck in the system as well. So you can certainly start using this. It is something you guys have today. And so you can certainly start using that. If there's questions around that, reach out to either Christy, myself, or your advisor. We're happy to help.
Yes. Oh my goodness. These are so great questions. So, okay, let me take a few. Okay, so it doesn't have an event tab. Let me show you all how I got where I got. So there's a drop down here. And usually you'll probably see it on the app view, if that's usually the default for lots of users, but you're going to go from app view to safety management, and then there are 3 horizontal lines there. The hamburger button, as Libby calls it, and then this is where you're going to get to the events. This is where you can start recording accident incidences or violations. Now, we've been very heavy on talking about accidents because this is specific to accident response and the accident response checklist, but someone had a question about incidences for their non-DOT employees that are also being managed in Tenstreet. The answer is yes, you can use this to record those incidences. And if I click add new incidents, you see it's a very, it's a basic form on purpose so that you can go in there and put the information in that's relative to you, the incident description, the notes. I had someone else ask a really great question about disciplinary actions. There is a feature that allows you to do those write-ups. We already have one standard form called the safety warning acknowledgement. If you go into process, add process, you likely already have access to that safety warning acknowledgement form. It's internal. It allows you to put in information and then send it to the driver for you to collect a signature and a review from them. If you have custom disciplinary forms, we're happy to accommodate those as well. There's so much that we could say, but I'm like, oh my gosh, we're running out of time. Okay, what other questions
right?
can I get through?
That's a great. And I just wanted to point out that the same goes for scoring and performance, right? When you look at these, what do we do with it is kind of the next step. And I'm sure we can have another webinar on that because Christy and I could talk about that a long time. But what do we do with that? We need to paint a picture of risk and performance that lets us understand how our fleet is actually performing. And we can do that in Tenstreet as well.
Yes, someone else asked, can the entire form, accident form be printed? And the answer is yes. So in the safety management view, there's this subject info tab. And this is actually where I would suggest you print it from, because what it does is it prints the full safety record, the personal info, the license information, and then any accidents that have been entered are going to be here along with all of the corresponding information. So you see Tuesday at, what's that? 2:15. That military time messes with me, y'all. But you can see it right here. All of that information, every single one of those fields, as you've entered it in, is able to be printed. I can go to the Actions tab and just click the print button. So we already thought of that for you. And then there's also another report. It's called the Post-Hire Accident Incident Violation Search Report, and it allows you to put in a date range. Hey, I want all of the accidents that happened during this date range, and you are able to put in some other parameters as well. But again, if you need to do that reporting, we allow you to do that because it's your data and we want you to be able to access it when you need it.
Two really quick questions I saw. You can link video from telematics if the telematics integration supports the video. And somebody asked if we have any future plans for kind of workers' comp management. I've seen some really cool ways to manage workers' comp in Tenstreet with incidents. And so we can certainly talk with you about that as well.
Absolutely. And so most commonly what I find is that a client would choose to, on the events tab, of course, with the silver and the gold upgrades for the safety management platform, you're able to add customizations. So we can add a whole section here to collect workers' comp information. So there's a couple of different ways that we can suggest those type of updates to you. So it really just depends on what you would specifically like to do. And yes, okay, we answered that question about the electronic logging devices or the telematics devices and that footage that comes in. Okay, safety communications turned on. Okay, I think that is a great way to start winding this down here. So you're gonna click your name up here at the top, go to settings, and then look under the communications preferences. Now, this is a general FYI for every single person on this webinar. If you haven't looked at your communication preferences recently, take some time to revisit it. We have added some new sections in here that just kind of make sense. And so this will make sure that you, as an individual user, are getting the notifications and alerts for different parts of the system that specifically intersect with your job duties. So the CSA communications, general communications, insights, lytics, Pulse MD, and again, you can either turn them all on or turn them off, or you can just say, hey, I only want a dashboard notification or an email, right? So this is one of those really cool click features that you're able to do and maintain. But again, that's relevant for everybody because there's lots of different user settings and preferences that are specific to each individual user and not just your company. Okay, well, I mean, this has been absolutely amazing. And I think that our attempt to keep it under 30 minutes, I mean, it went okay, but I love the engagement. I love that you really care about creating a robust safety program at your companies. I think it really shows the commitment that you have, the dedication to safety. I love the engagement. So again, Christy.choice@tenstreet.com, Josh.McAlister@tenstreet.com. Please reach out to us. We're more than happy to assist you with creating and using the safety management platform that we have in Tenstreet to the best and the fullest of your abilities. Now, I want to end on this note. Okay, play from current slide. So today we've been talking about the bronze tier of safety management. Again, we believe that safety management is for everyone. This bronze tier includes the safety management view, standard claims management, the accident registry. There was someone who asked about whether or not this feeds into the accident registry, and it does, along with points management, termination management, equipment assignment, and accident response. Many of you already have upgraded to the silver or gold tiers, but if you haven't, these are features that include bronze plus plus, right? They include other things like our standard training library, MBR monitoring integrations, telematics integrations, enhanced DQF, which is the driver qualification file management platform, and then Gold, which is even a step above that. So if you have questions about that, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are more than happy to have that conversation. Now, what Josh and I are going to do is we're going to go through these questions. We're going to send some emails, and we're going to proactively reach out to a few of you who we might not have been able to get to, schedule some time with us so that we can talk through this. And again, a lot of times we're leveraging things that you already have access to. So don't be shy. I want everyone to have a really great rest of your day. Those are my closing thoughts. Do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share, Josh?
No, I appreciate you guys interacting with us today. We are better because of you and the feedback that you give us. So I think it's a good one to say, stay safe.
All right, stay safe, San Diego. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Bye, everyone. Thanks again.
Bye, guys.